I still have the motel key. It says room 13, faded red numbers on a cracked plastic tag. The strange thing is, according to the man at the front desk, that room was sealed off more than 20 years ago. There shouldn't have been a room 13, but my girlfriend and I spent the night there. The main office light was on, and a man middle-aged, sun-worn, and heavy-lidded sat behind the counter. He barely acknowledged us, just slid a key toward me without a word. The walls were pale yellow and peeling in spots. The carpet felt oddly damp under our shoes. The overhead light didn't work, so we relied on a weak wall lamp that flickered if you walked too hard across the room. But the motel was one story. I checked to be sure there was no upstairs. Still, the sound moved from one side of the ceiling to the other, slow and deliberate. I banged my fist upward out of irritation. The noise stopped immediately. We both stared at the ceiling for a while, waiting. Beige wallpaper, no smear, no flickering. I chalked it up to being half asleep. We packed up our things and went to the front desk to check out. The same man was there. I handed him the key and casually mentioned we'd stayed in room 13. Nothing, just silence. Eventually we laughed it off, maybe old pipes, maybe a raccoon, who knows. But we left the bathroom light on, just in case. There was a strange echo in the place, like the walls were hollow or the air too still. I shrugged it off and tried to get comfortable. Not violently, not fast, just a soft jiggle. Like someone trying it quietly, hoping we wouldn't hear. The wallpaper wasn't the same, it was a dull, greenish color instead of the floral pattern I remembered. The ceiling lights flickered slowly, almost rhythmically, casting strange shadows. I walked up to the wall and pressed my palm against it. It was cold and hard, not hollow. No seam where a door should be. I even ran my hand along the floor, looking for scuffs or clues. Nothing. And down the hallway, leading away from our room, was a long, dark smear on the wall. That night I looked through my phone, hoping I had taken a photo that could prove it, trying to open a door that no longer exists. There was only one blurry, low light of Emily, brushing her hair in front of the motel mirror. And in the corner of the room, half in shadow, was a tall, pale figure I swear I never saw in person. It looked like something had been dragged. I stepped back from the door and didn't sleep for the rest of the night. I sat up, heart pounding, and stared at the door. The chain was latched, but I didn't move. The knob turned again, and then it stopped. I slowly got up and looked through the peephole. Emily took the bed by the wall and curled up with a blanket while I used my hoodie as a pillow. The tag read 13. I made a joke about it being lucky or unlucky. He didn't laugh. He didn't even look at me. Just turned his back and walked into a back room, letting the silence settle like dust. It happened last summer, during a long drive from Phoenix to Denver. As we walked to our room, I noticed something odd. The room numbers went 11, 12, then jumped to 14. But in between, there it was, room 13. The door looked different than the others, worn down. The paint chipped around the handle like it had been opened 1,000 times more than the rest. Sure enough, room 12, a supply closet, then room 14. No room 13, just a blank space. He said they sealed it off decades ago after a fire caused water damage. Said it was unsafe and hadn't been accessed in years. Emily hesitated, said it felt wrong, but we were too tired to care. We just wanted sleep. We were about 12 hours into the trip when fatigue hit us hard. The highway stretched on endlessly through the dark desert, and I could barely keep my eyes open. Emily, my girlfriend, was already dozing in the passenger seat when I saw a flickering neon sign on the side of the road. Rosewood Motel vacancy. It looked run down, a faded throwback from the 70s, but it was late, we were tired, and there were no other options in sight. We took the exit, drove 5 minutes down a cracked asphalt road, and pulled into the empty parking lot. The motel was a single-story structure with a flat roof and chipped paint. The hallway was dim and still. The air smelled like old cleaner and damp carpet. Inside, the room was freezing. The heater made a clicking noise but never turned on. That's when we started hearing the footsteps. At first, it sounded like soft creaking, like someone walking across the ceiling. I woke up around 3 o'clock a.m. to the sound of the doorknob turning. The hallway outside looked wrong. In the morning, the hallway looked completely normal. He blinked at me. "Which room?" 13, I repeated. "You gave us the key last night." He frowned. "We don't have a room 13. I thought he was messing with me. Come on, we stayed there. You gave us the key." He turned, pulled out an old laminated floor plan, and slid it across the desk. Confused, I asked him to come look. We walked down the hallway together. Between room 12 and room 14 was just wall. Solid, smooth drywall. No door, no number, no room 13. Emily started to panic. Our bags had been in that room. We had slept in there. We left in a hurry, shaken. I couldn't stop thinking about it, but the reflection wasn't right. She was sitting on the bed in the actual photo, but in the mirror she was standing. Behind herself. I still have that key. Room 13. Sometimes late at night I hear something faint, a soft metallic jiggling, like a doorknob turning. When I opened the motel room door and saw the lights already on, the sound of the shower running, and someone else's suitcase sitting near the bed, I should have turned around right then. Every instinct I had told me something was wrong, but I didn't listen. I was tired. I was alone. I had driven through most of Idaho and planned to make it another hour or two before stopping for the night. An older man sat behind the counter, barely looking up as I walked in. He was thin, hollow-eyed, dressed in an old flannel shirt with the collar buttoned all the way up. I asked if he had a room available, and without a word he pulled out a wooden key with a plastic tag labeled 8 in faded gold print. The small TV in the corner was playing a local news channel, turned down low. Whoever was in there didn't seem to notice me, or maybe they hadn't come out of the bathroom yet. A dozen thoughts raced through my head. Was the front desk guy confused? Did he give me the wrong key? Or had someone let themselves in? From behind the bathroom door, I could hear the distinct hiss of a running shower. The mirror above the dresser was fogged up. I rang the bell on the counter. After a moment, the same man came out from a back room. He looked exactly the same, expressionless, slow, like he hadn't slept in days. "Shouldn't be. You're the only check-in tonight." And sitting by the foot of the bed on the luggage rack was a large leather suitcase that definitely didn't belong to me. The lights were on, and there's someone's luggage in there. Shower's going too. I didn't think anything of it at the time, just one more weird late-night stop in a nameless town. But a heavy rain started falling out of nowhere, making the roads slick and visibility terrible. My eyes were burning, and I was starting to zone out behind the wheel. So when I saw a small, flickering roadside sign that read Pine Creek Motel vacancy, I took the exit without a second thought. The place was about a mile off the highway, tucked into a patch of thick trees. Yet I could hear distinct, slow, dragging footsteps crossing the ceiling. They moved from one corner of the room to the other, stopping directly above my bed. I didn't dare move. I just stared up into the dark ceiling, barely breathing. The footsteps didn't resume, but something else did. There were no lights on the road, and my GPS stopped giving updates as I pulled up to the gravel lot. It looked like the kind of place time forgot weather-stained siding, crooked neon sign, one lone office window glowing faintly yellow through the rain. I didn't even stop for gas until I was almost 2 hours down the highway. My hands were shaking the whole time. A woman answered. She sounded tired, older. I asked about the man at the desk. She said no one worked the desk overnight anymore. Her husband used to, but he passed away 2 years ago. When I asked about room 8, there was a pause. Then she said it hadn't been used in a long time, ever since what happened in there. When I asked what that meant, she just hung up. As I passed room 8 again, I felt this sharp cold in the air, not wind, just cold. Like the air around that door wasn't part of the same night. I looked once more at the window. The door, which I had left slightly ajar, now hung fully open. Inside, I could see only part of the room from that angle, but the suitcase was gone. The TV screen was showing static. A shadow moved briefly past the doorway, then stopped. The curtain twitched. It wasn't subtle. Someone or something was definitely on the other side. And I thought maybe, just maybe, there was a reasonable explanation. Looking back, I think the only reason I made it out of that place was because I didn't go any farther inside. It happened during a long, uneventful drive from Seattle to Salt Lake City, the kind of solo road trip that feels manageable until the fatigue creeps in faster than you expect. All I know is I still hear the sound of that shower sometimes when I can't sleep. And when I close my eyes, I still see the door slowly swinging open, waiting. Inside, the front desk was cluttered and dim. It smelled like mildew and old cigarettes. Clean sheets, no weird smells. A little dated, but nothing unusual. I double-locked the door, shoved the room's only chair under the handle, and tried to relax. Still, sleep didn't come easily. I lay in bed thinking about room 8, about the suitcase, about the way the curtain had moved just slightly, as if it knew I was watching. The lot outside was nearly empty, save for a rusty old truck with no visible plates. I parked 3 spaces down and walked through the puddles toward room 8, which was located at the very end of the motel's single hallway. That stretch of building felt colder than the rest, darker, even under the covered walkway. As I slid the key into the door, I noticed faint scratch marks around the handle. My stomach tightened for a second, but I was too tired to care. I opened the door, and then I just stood there. The lights were on. The overhead bulb flickered slightly, casting weak shadows across the floor. I didn't call out. I didn't even step fully into the room. I just stood there, processing it. Without turning off the lights or closing the door fully, I backed out and walked quickly to the office. I tried to keep my voice calm, "I think room 8 is already occupied." He looked at me without saying anything for a few seconds, then shrugged. "Then someone's in there," I said, more firmly. "You want to come look?" He didn't answer, just reached under the counter, pulled out another key, and handed it to me. "Try room 3, he said flatly. I hesitated. "That's it?" Another shrug. "It's late." I took the new key and left. Room 3 was on the opposite end of the motel, and it looked and felt completely different. Around 2:30 in the morning, I woke up to a sound that made my blood run cold. Footsteps. But they weren't outside. They were above me. The problem, this motel was a one-story building. There was nothing above me. A faint hissing sound. The sound of a shower turning on. Not in my bathroom. Not next door. It was distant but unmistakable. And I knew exactly where it was coming from room 8. I got out of bed and approached the window as quietly as I could. I peeked between the curtain. Room 8's light was still on. I didn't wait to see more. I grabbed my bag, threw everything into the car, and peeled out of that lot like the devil himself was on my tail. Out of morbid curiosity, a few days later, I tried calling the motel to ask what had happened. I don't know what I walked into that night, or who or what was already in that room. The first thing I noticed when I closed the bathroom door was the scratches, deep, uneven gouges clawed into the inside of the wood, like something had desperately tried to get out. That should have been enough for me to leave, but I was too tired, too numb from the road. I've been an over-the-road trucker for close to 15 years now, and I've spent plenty of nights in sketchy motels and truck stop parking lots, and a rundown roadside motel that looked like it hadn't been updated since the 60s. It was called Red Pines Lodge, though there wasn't a single pine tree in sight. I pulled into the lot and parked next to the office, which was barely lit. But on the inside, where the door met the tile floor, there were deep, jagged scratches running horizontally across the bottom half. They weren't made with a key or a knife. They looked more like claw marks. Long, frenzied slashes that had dug through the paint, the wood, even into the frame. Something had tried hard to get out. Inside, the clerk was a wiry guy with yellow-tinted glasses who looked like he hadn't blinked in 10 minutes. I ran my fingers along one. The wood was splintered and sharp. These weren't made for show. They were the kind of marks that come from panic. I asked for a room, and he said I was in luck they only had one left. For the first time in a while, I didn't feel tired. But sometime during the night, I had the most vivid dream I've ever had. In it, I was standing in the motel bathroom, staring at the scratched door from the inside. Except in the dream, it wasn't scratches I was looking at. It was the back of the door. And I was the one clawing at it, fingers bloody, screaming silently as I pounded, trying to escape something on the other side. Something just out of view in the mirror behind me. Not on the walls or the window, but from the bathroom. Tap, 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 like a fingernail gently clicking against the porcelain sink or tile. I held my breath, listening. "Old damage," he said. "Some guest a long time ago. Had a bad night. It would stop for a few minutes, then start again. I thought maybe it was the plumbing pipes contracting from the cold. That made sense, right? But then the doorknob rattled. Watching, I hadn't noticed it before, but in the reflection of the bathroom mirror, just barely visible, was something else. I didn't want to go near that door again, but curiosity got the better of me. But I'll never forget room 6, and I'll never again stay in a place where the bathroom door locks from the outside. I opened the medicine cabinet, pulled back the shower curtain. Nothing. Just an old, clean enough bathroom with cracked tiles and a slow drip from the faucet. But the second I closed that door again, the scratches stared me down like a warning. Room 6. Still, I texted a picture of the door to a friend of mine who also drives long haul. All he replied was, "Nope, that's demon shit." I laughed, but I didn't feel any better. You learn to tolerate peeling wallpaper, strange smells, and weird noises through the walls. A quick metallic twitch, like someone testing the lock. But this was different. I'd been driving for 11 hours straight, and a storm was moving in fast. The heater was still running, humming just loud enough to disguise the smaller sounds. I watched the gap under the door for any movement, any shadow. Nothing. I told myself to get up, to open it, to prove to myself there was nothing there, but I couldn't bring myself to move. When the sleet started hitting my windshield and the temperature dropped to the low 20s, I decided to pull off before the road iced over. And I convinced myself there had to be a normal explanation. Looking back now, I know that whatever made those marks wasn't human, and it wasn't gone. It was early November, and I was hauling a shipment of equipment from Amarillo up to Wyoming. I ended up in a small town I'd never heard of, barely more than a gas station, a diner. He didn't mention anything unusual, just handed me the key, an actual key, not a card, and muttered something about the heater being finicky. I figured it'd be one of those nights where I kept my socks on in bed and hoped the sheets didn't smell like mildew. But when I opened the door to room 6, everything looked more or less normal. The lighting was dim, and the decor was outdated, but nothing out of the ordinary. Still, there was this feeling like the air had a weight to it, thick and still. I chalked it up to the storm and being overtired. I dropped my bag by the bed and went to use the bathroom. That's when I saw it. The door to the bathroom had been repainted recently, at least the outside of it had. I crouched down to look closer. There were 5 distinct lines, unevenly spaced, and they were set so deeply that I could slide my pinky into them. I stepped back, unsettled. Trying to laugh it off, I told myself maybe someone had a large dog that panicked when it got locked in. That night I couldn't sleep. Around midnight I started hearing this soft, rhythmic tapping. Just once, I sat up in bed, staring at that door. Eventually the tapping stopped, or maybe I just fell asleep. I woke up in a cold sweat, mouth dry, the heater long since gone out. The room was ice cold. The bathroom door was still closed. When I checked out in the morning, I asked the clerk, half joking, what happened to the door in room 6. He stared at me for a moment, then gave a weak smile. I wanted to ask more, but something in his face told me not to. Back in my truck, I looked again at the picture I'd taken of the scratches. A shape, vague, pale, standing in the corner behind me. I deleted the photo and didn't stop driving until I was 2 states away. I've stayed in hundreds of motels, seen all kinds of strange things,